This is a very serious story involving Dana White that broke tonight on TMZ of footage of him and his wife at a nightclub in Cabo San Lucas on New Year's Eve. And the video was captured and appeared on TMZ's site, where White is seen with his wife, Anne, and he grabs her by the wrist and says something in her ear. And then she proceeds to slap Dana, and Dana responds slapping her in the face before the people that they are around in this VIP area intervene. And so obviously Dana White was aware this was coming because we have an interview up on TMZ. And I will say I don't know if I've ever seen Dana White in a state like this as he is being interviewed. And he explains that there was heavy amounts of alcohol involved, but does state that is no excuse to ever put your hands on a woman. He does point out, and this is something that he had said many times ago, that you never put your hands on a woman. So he is acknowledging that, and stated that, him and his wife, just think about this way. How many times have you ever heard from his wife in the history that you recall? Like, she is a pretty private figure, other than you are aware that Dana White has a wife and 3 children. But she put out a statement, and essentially, what Dana said, this has never happened before. And she backed that up, said that they have apologized to one another. Their concern is their children right now. This was very much damage control. The fact that this was on video, I think that was, it just illustrated it. And I think it was that much more significant. The fallout of this could be very, very severe. I mean, there are people in these positions that would not survive something like this. And I mean, I'm not trying to be crass here, but it's the obvious is that here is a video of a man slapping his wife that is launching a slap fight league in a couple of weeks' time. That this is going to be how Disney reacts to this, how Endeavor reacts, which you would think would be somewhat based upon how Disney is feeling about this. Like, there was a time that Dana White could probably skirt through, but the days, like, he is a major
Disney. Sorry, Disney.
Just with the ESPN deal. I mean, that's
okay. Gotcha.
Like, this is where it goes up right to the top of, like, Disney, that here is one of your major, partners that is the front facing figure of your company. That's a major figure with on ESPN Plus, on ESPN proper.
And obviously
this could have an enormous ripple effect, and this could be a very, very major story. It will tell you if Dana White is able to skirt by this. Like, the last, I would say, major story he had was the Loretta Hunt issue, where he dropped some horrible, horrible language, but that was a different era of UFC that is nowhere near under the radar, or I should say was operating more under the radar than it is today, and with many, many business dealings that you have.
Yeah. And of course, obviously, Warner Media Discovery and TNT, TBS, people that are currently partnering.
I think that could be very much in doubt, at the very least, of being delayed at somewhat. Like, Dana would have been your person promoting all of this. I don't know how you can go through with that in 2 weeks' time.
People get away with a whole lot when you're, in a powerful position with a lot of money in the media. So, I mean, does everything kind of proceed as planned? It wouldn't shock me if it did, John. But this is about one of the worst things that somebody could be involved with, as they're about to launch a slap fighting league on national TV. It's horrible. It's terrible that it happened. And I haven't seen the apology, but I don't know if there's any sort of apology that would make this that much better. I understand.
It was like, this interview, if you watch it, like, this is damage control Dana. If you want to watch this interview, like, he is not and I mean, they ask him at the end, Dana, do you even remember it? And he just like, no, I don't even remember it. I mean, it's like he's not using alcohol as an excuse, but that is, in all of the stories, it was like alcohol was, a major factor here. But, the video looks bad. It looks really bad. And, this could certainly go into, Dana White's position in the UFC. Like you don't know how major companies are going to react to something like this. And if Disney is scared off by this, it could have a major effect, or this is something where Dana can somehow skirt by this. But
I certainly don't doubt that, like, you know, if you're Endeavor, if you're the UFC, you're probably going to be questioning how public you make Dana, you know, for the foreseeable future. I don't think I don't really have that much of a clear indication of like his power within the company at this point, but I imagine it's still quite considerable. So, but you know, as far as like him being a public facing person for the time being, I'm sure they're seriously considering it. Do incidents like this go as far as, I guess, Disney? Because certainly ESPN is no like in sports, you have controversial figures involved in, you know, awful news all the time. Has Disney intervened? You know,
I would say if you had like a major sports owner on video slapping his wife, that's pretty bad. Like what I thought of reading this story was Chris Albrecht, who is a name people might not be familiar with, but he used to be the head of HBO. And in 2007, I mean, he was involved. He was arrested, but he was involved in a similar situation. He lost his job at HBO. And there actually is a UFC tie in there because they were in talks, UFC and HBO at the time, and he was a supporter of the UFC. And once he left, that was, that was a pretty significant story in media back in 2007. But, you know, powerful figures, and that was not caught on video. Like that, and I don't mean to like minimize it, but you know, we see the example from like Ray Rice. It's like those stories were out there, but once the video was there, it's just a more damning element to the story. There's less, if you are a fan of somebody or you want to excuse behavior, and it's just one person's word or the reporting, it's something's being left out. The video is there. It's clear to see, and you know, it's a couple.
When is the PowerSlap fight?
2 weeks. It's supposed to start on the 11th. Like this is, I don't know how you can, and you would imagine Dana would have been doing a ton of media leading up to that premiere. And if you're Warner Brothers, I don't want this guy out there promoting what is such a direct correlation to this video that already would have its detractors in terms of the slap fight league. That I think once people watch this thing, like it's going to draw a lot of criticism. I just cannot imagine. I can't imagine going ahead with it, with this debut. The timing. I mean, there's never a good time for something like this, but especially like we're here to talk about the sporting and the business implications, right, of these stories. And certainly, when it comes to something like this, I can't see if you're Warner Media Discovery wanting to be involved so publicly in business with this person operating this style of organization that is promoted around slapping people in the face. It's comical to even suggest. So I have to imagine, like, I also imagine Dana's all over the show. He's like you're essentially your spokesperson for the entire league. Yeah. So it's probably too late to re-edit these shows to remove him out of it, right? So how do you proceed with this launch? And he would be, you know, the most central figure to that show. I mean, it would be like, that was, you know, Dana White being attached to that, I think is a large reason they have a TV deal to begin with. I don't think this is happening if this is just, you know, another production. And let's fold it back into professional wrestling. You know, on the we did a likely unlikely about whether or not Dana White would appear on AEW programming, and I certainly think the answer to that will be no right now. How much do you think even AEW might be comfortable promoting it? Obviously, they'll do what the network tells them to do, but to what extent? Yeah, I mean, it just could have many implications. The central one being, you know, the response from Endeavor and Disney. I think that is going to be, it will be very, like, this broke tonight. And they had the interview ready to go on TMZ with Dana, who stated like he's still on his vacation. How big of a story this is tomorrow. Again, at the same time, like we have seen sometimes where, you know, even in the early days of the Vince McMahon story, like, yes, it got focused, but people moved on. Like, even in the grand scheme of things, like at this end of the year, when you're watching all these different sports and news shows recapping the year, it's like Vince McMahon was not a big story to the mainstream world. It's like in our world, very, very big story, the biggest story of the year. But, you know, it's some of these figures like a Vince McMahon and Dana White, like Vince McMahon, like skirted by a lot of stuff, not something like this, but other, controversies that didn't stick to him like it would have other mainstream figures. We're going to see what the effect is on Dana White.